My bad. Okay, I muted the music for myself, but not for you guys. Apologies. Is it good now? Yes? Okay.
You're good. Go for it.
Sorry, technical difficulties. But anyways, just a reminder to what I was saying was put in your attendance. You can win a swag box if you come out to at least 5 GBMs. Um, and then I don't know, Steely or one of your awards chairs wants to talk about this.
I can do it really fast. So one thing that we're starting this semester is SWE monthly member highlights. So if you have like a big accomplishment, like you got an internship, or just even if it's like a personal thing, like you just want to celebrate, big or small, fill out the form and we will recognize you at our GBM. And if it's more of like a professional accomplishment, like an internship, we'll also post it on our LinkedIn once a month. And if it's a personal one, we might post it on the Instagram if you would like that. So yeah, fill out the form if you have anything that you would like to celebrate with us.
Definitely would love to give you a shout out. Okay, and then Sweetie of the Week is something we've been doing this year, and that's basically recognizing amazing members who have been really involved for the week. And we're going to recognize them, especially since this semester our GPMs are weekly. We're going to be highlighting one person every week. So this is also just a reminder that we have an amazing incentives point program where you can earn points by coming out to our events, and you can get cool merch. So, hmm. um, can you guys hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, sorry about that. Without further ado, we're going to announce our Sweetie of the Week for this week. She is a second year chemical engineering major from Orland Park. She's our SWE recruitment chair from the summer and also this semester and this year, and she's part of GT Marching Band. We especially want to highlight her this week because she's been working really hard with recruitment events, and she and her chair, Mafe, hosted an amazing winter bonding activity during winter break. And that person is Sophia. So everyone get some claps in the chat or something. But thank you, Sophia, for all your hard work. We really appreciate it. We love how involved you've been in with SWE and can't wait to see what else you do. Next up,
So this Thursday from 11 to 12, we're having our first event in like our month of SWE series, and it's just a virtual game break. And so every event that we're having over the course of the next 4 weeks, we've tried to plan like different times, different activities. So we'll be doing a game break during like the lunch hour that we all have from 11 to 12 this Thursday. I'll put the link to the RSVP in the chat after I'm done talking to you. But definitely RSVP if you're interested.
yep, and bring all your friends. Virtual game night is always the funnest, and we definitely want more people to get to know SWE. Okay, so spring chair applications have been out for a week, over a week now, and they are due this Friday. So definitely check them out if you, even if you're a new member or someone who just wants to get more involved with SWE, we have 3 chair positions open, so elections and then alumni connections and mentoring. And like I mentioned, this is a great way to get to know other people, see the behind the scenes of what we do, and really get involved. So definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Amanda, did you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so a great kind of girl that I know heads up some of the investments committee kind of work that they do, and she's super involved, and they're always looking for more women to join. So if you're really interested in kind of investing or getting to manage a philanthropic endowment, it's a great opportunity. And yeah, they're always looking for more women and great visibility for kind of finance careers if you're looking to do that.
We're going to be doing like a little round robin mentoring thing, and we would like for you to RSVP. It's not required, but it would help us kind of help better prepare you into groups, get the most out of the next general body meeting. And we'll be having one rotation that's based on major and another that's just kind of more random based on maybe your interest in SWE. So I'll also put the chat as well. So definitely RSVP and come to the GBM next week.
Hello guys. Let me take my keys off. Okay, I literally just got back. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to go over a couple of the professional events that we've got coming up. The first of which will be FM Global. They're having a trivia night and sort of info session for FM Global, very informal, this Thursday at 5. If you'd like to go, please RSVP at both forms, but most importantly the second one, because then you can enter a $50, I think it's Amazon gift card raffle. So that'll be really fun. And there's the Blue Jeans link there, and I'll make sure to post all of the sign up links in the chat so that you guys have much easier access to them. Go ahead. Okay, so the next event is actually this Wednesday, tomorrow, with Texas Instruments, and it's labeled The Brand Called You. So they're basically going to be giving resume tips and also a couple of professional image tips and personal stories about Texas Instruments. So go ahead and RSVP at both links below, most importantly the second, so that they have your number, or not number, your name in their contacts. Okay, go ahead. All right, and a little far away, but we have the mock interview night, February 18th. This is basically going to be a mock behavioral interview, 15 minutes, with a company, random company, and they're going to give you some feedback as soon as you're done with the interview so you can practice your professional skills and networking skills. And then lastly, in March, we have the Spring Networking Night coming up, so go ahead and sign up for that if you're interested. If you went last time, we used Gatherly. We are also going to be using Gatherly in the spring. It's basically an online forum that makes you look like you're walking around a room, so you can kind of have a physical presence, but it's all obviously online. All right, and that's it. I hope you guys sign up.
Yeah, hey guys. So, as usual, you guys have probably all heard this before, so I won't spend too much time on it. But if you want to volunteer, for the most part, with our youth programs events that we do here, if we're ever interacting with a minor, in that case, you have to be background checked. So make sure you fill out this background check form if you haven't already and you're interested in outreach. And then I think, is there another slide, Hannah?
Yes.
Okay, and then a quick note on this, just because I know there's a lot of confusion on it. But if you filled out the form to get background checked and then you haven't heard back from me, then it's probably because you didn't get this email or you didn't fill it out when you did get the email. But this is an important part of HR. I put a screenshot in here so you guys can see, because sometimes it comes up a little sketchy, but that is how HR starts your background check process. It's like a survey they have to do. So if you filled out the background check form and then didn't hear anything back from me, it's because you're not background checked, and it's probably because you didn't fill out this form. So feel free to email me and I can try to get it resent to you. But this is kind of the main source of issues I've been seeing in terms of background checks and people just missing this email or not receiving it. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Kat. Okay, and then really quick, we put a lot of amazing opportunities in these Evernote notebooks. So the links to all of these are in our newsletter, but I'm just going to demonstrate one of you because one of our members has a specific opportunity they'd like to share with us. Basically, these Evernote notebooks, when you click on the link, will take you to this public kind of notebook page thing where you can just click View Notebook and you'll see a note for any kind of opportunity we get from other organizations. There's different notebooks for different topics. So Erica, if you're here, do you want to talk about this really quick? Okay, well, she's not here, but basically she wanted to share this link where you can basically apply for job applications easier and connect with companies better. So if you're interested, go ahead and look at our Evernote notebooks. Okay, and then last but not least, the company presenting this week is Lutron. So go ahead and welcome them, and we are excited to hear what they have to say. They're talking about a day in the life.
Okay. Hello. Am I able to share my screen to, okay. Should be interesting. First time I'm presenting on BlueJeans, so 1 second. Okay, can you all see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. So Lutron is presenting today. My name is Holly. I have been with Lutron for 5 years now. I'm actually a Georgia Tech alum. I graduated in 2015 with a background in industrial engineering and went straight to Lutron from there. So that's just brief background of who I am today, and I'll let my counterpart introduce herself.
So I'm Madison. I actually graduated from the University of Florida in 2019 with a degree in electrical engineering. I was a co-op at Lutron my senior summer and then started full-time pretty much right out of college.
So today we're going to go over a bit of an overview of who Lutron is first, and then talk to you about our experience as what a day in the life working as an engineer at Lutron is like. So I won't hold it against anybody. I know when I was at Georgia Tech, I had no idea who Lutron was. So a little bit about us. Lutron was actually founded by Mr. Joel Spira in the late 50s, early 60s. He actually invented the world's first solid-state dimmer in 1959, and that's what kicked this whole company off. So here I'm showing the first product that we ever brought to market. It's just a classic rotary dimmer. You probably have seen a version of this maybe in your parents' dining room. And then we still sell versions of this today, so you can kind of see aesthetically how it's changed over time. And then now on the right here, we actually offer a version of this that just goes onto your toggle switch and can do the same thing that a rotary dimmer can do. So that is the first product that got us off the ground, but we do so much more than that. Lutron is a leader in the industry. So along with the first solid-state dimmer, we have many firsts. We also had the first linear slide dimmer, which is another aesthetic, but that is actually in the Museum of Modern Art. And our first dimmer is in the Smithsonian, like right next to Edison's light bulbs. So it's pretty cool stuff that our founder has done, and cool things that we continue to do and bring to market. We had the first two-way radio frequency control system, and then we're also, fun fact, the first lighting control company that also has a pear farm, which is very weird, but they're very delicious, and we do have company sales. So that's just a quick rundown of how we're first in the market in many areas. And you could just see here a funny, well, to me it's funny now, but one of our first advertisements for the original dimmer and how you can dial in a little romance, change the mood in your space.
Okay, so yeah, like Holly said, we don't just do rotary dimmers like she showed a couple slides ago. We actually have over 15,000 products ranging from just standalone lighting controls, lighting systems for both commercial and residential buildings that include sensors and remotes to control the lights. We also do motorized shades, and we've recently ventured into outdoor lighting and actually making light bulbs instead of just controlling them. So we actually have a really cool new high-end color control light bulb that you can see at the bottom right. So most of the lighting control systems are actually pretty complex, so it typically requires a contractor to install them. Okay, we went to the next slide.
Sorry, I thought you were talking. Sorry.
It's okay.
We'll go back.
It's okay. But most of these systems can go into like retrofit buildings, so existing buildings, or they also go into new construction. And then we also have more of a do-it-yourself residential system called Caseta that you can get at like Home Depot or Amazon. Okay, we'll go to the next slide now. So our products not only integrate with just like our Lutron app, we also integrate with Alexa, Google Home, Apple Watch, and most recently we actually started working with Ring Doorbell. So if one of the Ring devices detects movement, it'll actually turn your lights on, which is a pretty cool security feature. Excuse me. So through the cloud, Wi-Fi, and our bridge, you're able to control ceiling lights, lamps, shades, and also thermostats.
So I guess I don't know how to poll in BlueJeans, but just a fun fact, a little trivia fact about Lutron is, I guess you could just think to yourself, is how many patents do you think we hold? And I researched this because I had no idea. We actually have almost 5,000 patents. So if you're coming in as an engineer and you're wondering, do we even do design, or is that maybe part of the job? Definitely. I mean, not everybody, right? Well, I mean, it depends on your major, your role, all that stuff. But design is definitely a huge part of Lutron. We have many patents, again, because we're a leader in the industry. So fun fact. And then last year, just to kind of show you where we are in case you haven't seen us, and not on this slide, I think we actually are we might still be in the Georgia Tech ballroom in the Student Center. It's been a while, so I haven't checked. But we're also, we're in the White House. We're in the new Apple campus and Empire State Building. So these are just some of the really cool jobs that we've had the opportunity to be in. Because, again, you could do residential systems with certain Lutron products and also really big commercial systems to outfit, the whole Empire State Building. So very scalable depending on what your needs are. We have products for any of that and have gotten to do some really cool jobs. So what does an engineer do? You're working to get this degree, and then what does your day look like? I'll let Madison kind of start talking through her process as an engineer.
Yeah, so real quick, I just wanted to show this picture. I think it's pretty representative of how we all work together. So it's not just one person working on designing one of our dimmers. So this is an example of our Caseta dimmer, and as you can see, there are a ton of engineers that work on it. So people like me, I do the power and analog electronics, and then there are other electrical engineers that do like the RF antenna and how we are able to communicate with other devices. And then we need computer engineers who work on the firmware that's like the brains of the product and allows it to communicate to the bridge and other devices in the system. And then we also have mechanical engineers that work on the aesthetic of the product and just kind of the overall user experience. So I don't know if you can see, but basically our switches on the product just look like typical micro P, like tactical switches. But with the mechanical engineer's design, we're actually able to make it feel like pretty smooth and make it a good experience for the customer. So then we also have manufacturing and supply chain engineers that work with making sure that our manufacturing lines run smoothly and we're able to get our products out to customers. And then supply chain industrial engineers work to make sure that all of the components and parts that we need are arriving on time and that there's not going to be any difficulty ever getting the parts. So now I'll talk a little bit about what I do day to day. Pretty much different for me every day. I'm sorry if you can hear scratching in the background. That's my dog. So as an electrical engineer, you're basically with a project from start to finish. So every project starts out as just an idea that maybe somebody within the company came up with or something that a customer has asked us for. So meetings are first held to discuss exactly what's going to be in the product and what features it will have. And so we're part of that from start to end because we're the ones that are like designing the circuitry. So then once we know it's going to be in the product, we have to come up with the circuitry and the schematics and run simulations on programs like LT Spice. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that, but I know I used it at UF. And we also will build prototypes to test just kind of our schematics before we send it out to be ordered. So then once we get the PCBs in, we have to do a bunch of testing to make sure the product's going to be durable and last, and to also make sure that it's safe for the customer. But we don't just sit and like kind of work by ourselves all day long. We're constantly in communication with all of the other engineers that I talked about in the last slide, because we have to make sure that everything works together. So we have to talk with the computer engineers to make sure that like our hardware is going to fit with their software design, the mechanical engineers to make sure that our parts aren't going to get too hot and like melt the plastics that's on our product, or that our components aren't going to like hit the back of like the assemblies that they're creating. And we have to work with lost my train of thought. We have to work with manufacturing engineers to make sure that there's no issues when they're building the product. So I actually, last February, I was finishing up my first project, and I went up to one of our manufacturing plants to help just like with our first builds. And I was supposed to be there for a week, but because of a bunch of issues we came into, I was actually there for 2 weeks, and it was really helpful to be up there, and I learned a lot. And then we also just kind of have to keep a paper trail the whole time that we're working and designing the product. So we create paperwork to show like how we design the circuits and kind of why certain components are there. And then also just kind of like a troubleshooting guide if something's going wrong, like what are some things you can check to make sure that it's not something that like you're doing yourself or that it wasn't built wrong. So there's a lot that we do. It's not just working by ourselves and like the same thing every day. It's not monotonous at all.
And then I wanted to kind of talk about my day in the life, because as an industrial engineer working in our supply chain, it looks different for everyone depending on kind of where you get put. But for me and the role that I started out in my first year at Lutron, I didn't own a specific product. So I don't have the, infancy to maturity kind of lifespan of a product that, I've seen it since it was an idea all the way to when it's being first built on the line and then shipped to a customer. Instead, some industrial engineers do have more of that experience if they're working more on your like supply chain program management side and new product introduction. Those engineers would be working a lot on getting the raw materials for the first time for a new product and making sure the first manufacturing runs go well. So there is some of that, but my experience has been a little different, working more on the finished goods side of things. So I was responsible for backlog and fill rate metrics the first year, which is just making sure, are we shipping orders to our customers at the time that they're due? And is anything past due, is the pile of past due orders getting larger or smaller? And the goal is to be driving that down. So it is more of an overall kind of picture of the company and the orders that are due rather than being in charge of one specific product. So what my day would kind of consist of, and is never the same, but just as like an example, probably spend the first part of my morning just prepping for my morning meetings, making sure no emergencies popped up in the morning or late last night, and making sure to pull any data I need so that then I could go and lead the daily Scrum meetings, which in a Scrum, it's supposed to be brief. You're pulling together everyone who would need to know about what's going on. So we would have customer service in there. We would have the warehouse. We would have our manufacturing leads and our supply chain and logistics. We'd have everybody. And I was responsible for leading that meeting. And the goal is to go over, how did we perform yesterday, review yesterday's metrics, and what's standing in the way of today and tomorrow's metrics so that we can focus on those things to drive success. So that would be my morning. It would be very fast-paced, getting all that done. And then I would do some tactical tasks for a little bit of time. So I would specifically have to make these expedite lists for anything that came up in the meeting that's past due, and I would send those to the manufacturing plant to kind of give them a priority for the day in their production schedule to say, hey, these orders are really hot, and so please get them to us ASAP, put them on a plane, get them to our DC. So I would do that, and then probably spend some time doing data analysis. I think data analysis was a big part and still is a big part of any IE's job. So for that role, it would be a lot of root cause analysis, looking into why did we miss orders, so that then if we figure out the why, we can correct it in the future. And then most people at Lutron, we take an hour for lunch. I mean, if you're busy, you might not take the full hour, but it's understood, 12 to 1 is lunch. And then I would usually have sometime during the day, so maybe the next hour, shadowing a team member. Because if you're new, you don't really know how the company works yet, so it's a good idea to sit down with different people, learn what they're doing, why they're doing it, maybe gauge some interest for a next role that you might want to move into after you're finished with your first role. So shadowing to gain knowledge, and then I'd probably have some time for an improvement project. So that's kind of the back end of the analysis from that morning, was figuring out the what was the problem. And now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do we fix that? And I probably have 1 or 2 specific projects where we've identified a common root cause, and now we're saying, what can we do to fix this? And I did a pretty neat project probably around year 2 or 3 in the warehouse, where I would actually spend 20% of my time one day every week in our warehouse, which I work in the corporate headquarters, which is 20 minutes down the street from our main distribution center. And I got to go to the warehouse once a week and spend time there watching the process of getting product off the line and then moving it into the warehouse and figuring out, where are there inefficiencies, and found out, product has to come off the line, it has to get audited, then it has to wait after it's audited for someone to know to take it to the warehouse. So working on streamlining the waiting thing, once it's been audited, it's just sitting there. And so let's figure out how to know or put a process together that this product's been audited, let's get it to the warehouse so we can ship it to customers faster. So that's kind of the improvement type stuff that you might work on. And then in your first year, you're going to have new employee training. Everybody does. It's a good way to meet people and learn about the company. And yeah, I think that took about a year, but it wasn't every day for a year, but there's different modules you have to go through. So I just wanted to kind of show how over time, since I've been here for 5 years now, my responsibilities have shifted. So year 1, most of my time was spent doing data analysis and tactical work and training. A lot of training. And there was the little bit of time where I would lead meetings. They gave me some immediate responsibility of taking control of the Scrum meetings, which was really empowering to be in charge of a meeting with so many different groups and have to pull that data together and run the meeting. So they gave me some of that immediate responsibility, which was great. And some amount of time, I was able to work on the fun stuff, the strategic projects. And then now coming in, being in year 5, the responsibilities have shifted. So I spend a lot more of my time running meetings and prepping for those, making sure I'm prepared and think through, all the business questions that would be asked of me, and driving strategic improvement projects. That's the main part of my job now, which is great. The past 2 years, I've been responsible for rolling out a whole new software for our supply chain planning. And it's been a huge undertaking, and a very good experience to learn about myself and how I manage and how I deal with having a supplier that I work closely with. So it's been a great shift over the past 5 years into giving me more and more responsibility. So another thing we wanted to touch on, since we have some time, is a common question is, have I ever used my degree? Because sometimes it feels like, am I using my degree? So I would say yes to that question, and also no in some ways. And I don't know if you want to chime in, Madison.
Yeah, so I was actually talking to Holly yesterday, and I said I think I use about like 10% of my electrical engineering degree. So I use I don't know what all majors you guys are, but like Ohm's Law, KVL, KCL, like that's still used every day. And then I also took an electronic circuits class in college that I've used pretty much every day. It's like learning about BJTs and optocouplers, op amps, and that stuff. But pretty much, I'd say like 90% of my job I've learned just working and like gaining experience through different co-ops and internships, and then full time, like you just learn stuff as it comes up. I think, at least for me at UF, we learned a lot about like ideal situations with circuits, and that's just never the case in real life. So I've learned a lot just being on the job.
That's so true. A lot of what you'll cover in class is ideal situations, like from an IE standpoint, like perfect reorder points and, that beautiful like inventory to deplete the supply and then get your new replenishment quantity. Anyway, it's never perfect. Nothing is by the book. So it's always, there's always something. But I think I agree with Madison. Maybe like 10% of it has been the true technical degree specific knowledge. I have had to sit down and calculate a safety stock and a order quantity and a reorder point and all those kinds of IE things. And I would also say, yeah, coding has surprisingly or not surprisingly been a very beneficial piece to it. And I don't know if it's still this way for you guys, but even as an IE, like everyone had some amount of coding in their degree, whether or not you're, a computer science major. And I think it's a very valuable skill because it just teaches your brain how to think in certain form of logic. And for at least with Lutron and all of the data analysis that I have to do, you have to get that data. You have to retrieve it. And so it's a lot of database extraction, which we have, customer-facing, friendly-looking tools, which is really just like a pretty GUI for running a SQL query. But having the background understanding of how all that works, and also just with this most recent project of working on rolling out a whole new supply chain software, there is so much integration and code, and being able to actually talk on some level of understanding with the consultants about that is super helpful. So I would say that's actually been like very useful regardless of my degree not being computer science, but just having some minimal, coding experience has been great. And then the big thing is the stuff you don't see, like just going through the motions and trying in your classes to get through and finish your projects and study for your tests. And all of that is teaching you how to problem solve and how to think critically. And with the projects and the groups you join, like in SWE, right, you're working on how you collaborate and work with others, communication. Those skills are things that you pick up, and that's really what is, I think, the most used. Whether or not you're using a technical piece of your degree, the problem solving is what is so important, and that's a big part of what you're learning to do.
Okay, so we have 5 engineering offices throughout the East Coast of the United States. So Coopersburg is in Pennsylvania. It's our headquarters. It's where Holly works. So we do, or like they have all different types of engineering there. So industrial, electrical, computer, manufacturing, mechanical. And then the Philadelphia office is more just software app development. The Boston and Florida engineering office, I don't know if I said it earlier, but I'm in the Florida engineering office, is again like mechanical, electrical, and computer engineers. And then we also have a new office in Austin, Texas, which is our engineering office for Ketra, which is the color changing light bulbs that I was talking about earlier.
Yep.
So I know that all of you guys are probably some sort of engineering major, but that's not the only major that we hire for. I know Holly was saying that she thinks she said, physics and math majors that are now working for the company. I actually know a chemical engineer who is now in our sales program. So just because you don't think that your major has anything to do with kind of what we do as a company, that's not true. We have a position for everybody.
Yeah. And I have at least one person I know who is aerospace by background who works at Lutron. Obviously, we don't do anything that flies. And I have a biomedical engineer that I work with as well. So it's kind of the non-standard path of doing things, but it really all comes down to technical ability and problem solving. And if you can do that and you have passion and you're interested in Lutron, then we may have a good fit for you. So yeah, anybody could really fit in. And then I think the last thing we want to cover here is our engineering development program. So another big part of joining Lutron and being an engineer at Lutron is that when you're a new engineer, you are automatically enrolled in our engineering development program. It is a 2-year onboarding program separate from the new employee training. New employee training is just what everyone goes through, and it's kind of the basic stuff, like ethics and our founding and locations, that kind of stuff. But the engineering development program is a fantastic way to meet all the other new engineers at the company. So I've always kind of described it as my graduating class in a way, because there's a fair amount of you. I think when I started, there were 40 or 50 of us.
Yeah, I think
all that year.
People. You
had 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it's great. You meet people that way, and you make connections that later down the road end up being helpful, because now I'm an IE, but hey, if I have a mechanical need for whatever, like I know somebody that I can at least call, and maybe they're not the right person, but I get someone in the right team probably, and they'll be able to direct me to find the piece of information or the person that I'm looking for. So it's a great way to build relationships for professional purposes. It's also a great way to make relationships for just fun purposes. This is probably a little dated now, but at the time we had a group me. I don't know if that's still a thing, but we all started a group chat, and then we would break off into like little groups. And I had a group where we would go backpacking together every now and then. There's a group that would meet Wednesday nights and play board games together. So if you are someone who is like me and you're coming not even from the area, right, and you don't know anybody, it's a great way to make friends and have things to do, and then also help you down the road professionally.
Yeah,
So
and
what is the program? Or yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying I can kind of speak on that since I'm in the Florida engineering office. There's only about 30 people total, so there were 4 of us that started all around the same time. So being able to, we actually got to go up to the headquarters for a week and meet other people that were in the program. So that was a really great way to get to know more people in the company, since normally there's only like 30 of us that I'm working with in an office.
That's neat. I've never been to the Florida office, but it is much smaller than Coopersburg. There's lots of us at Coopersburg. There's 5 buildings. We're a private company, so we don't actually know numbers, but if it helps you get a picture, there are 5 buildings on the main campus in Coopersburg. So that's the headquarters. So what do you actually do in this program? I mean, I'm talking about the relationship building, but we have the 5 pillars here. Classroom training is big. So as a IE who knows nothing about circuits, I think I took 1 class and I did not do well. We even had a piece of this EDP program where they spent a few hours one day just going over the basics of how a dimmer dims. Because if you're going to work for a lighting control company, like, you should probably at least understand how a dimmer dims. So we had a class that we learned that. There's some problem-solving exercises that I think we did sometimes. I remember one day we came in and it was almost like a choose-your-own-adventure. They like had you pretend that you're an engineer and you're figuring out, some problem, and you have to make decisions. And as you go, based on the decisions you make, they would hand you like an outcome, and then you'd have to go from there. So it's technical training, it's problem-solving training, it's teaching you more about company culture and history. Experiential learning is a big part of it. So it's been different over different years. I know in the past they have had people actually sit down with tech support and sit down with customer service on a call and hear the other side of that call, the customer side of that call, to understand the complete picture of how our products are being like perceived and what kind of problems customers might have, so that we can understand all of that. I don't know. Did you sit down with anyone on a call, Madison?
So I'm technically still in the engineering development program until this June, since it's 2 years. I didn't personally do a tech call like that because I'm in Florida, but I think a lot of the people in Coopersburg do it. I did get to sit in on a couple trainings that our sales team gives to customers, which is cool to kind of see the questions that customers have and the things that you see them getting excited about. Because at least for me on my side, like, I see the product from start to finish, but I don't ever get to see customers' kind of experience on it. So it was cool to see what they think about our products and stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. And then the next pillar of here, high stakes meetings. So this is a great part of the program where they are making sure you get FaceTime with some of the most senior engineers at the company. 1, so they learn your face, and 2, so that you work through having to present to senior leadership. And some of it is even informal, just to be social. Like, we had breakfast one morning just with one of the senior engineers. So that's a great way to just, practice your presentation skills, make connections with people who have a lot of rank at the company. So that was part of this. And then diverse assignments. So this is also kind of changed over the years, so I'm not sure what it's looking like now, but they've had you work cross-functionally with other engineers on a project that's totally unrelated to your day-to-day job, just to give you, experience working on a cross-functional team with other engineers, working on a project that is outside of your main area of focus, so that you get more well-rounded, learn another part of the company. So I'm not sure how much they're doing that now, but the spirit of it is some sort of way to get you exposed to more areas of the company. And then last, which we touched a lot on at the beginning, and I think the biggest part of it is just the community building. And last slide. So extracurricular activities are also great and a wonderful thing to do after work or over the lunch hour as well. So what my day as an engineer would look like is go through my day at work, and then after work in the first couple years, I played on a soccer team. We have, I think it's like 5-on-5. There's some grass field down at the bottom of our campus. And different days of the week, there's different sports going on. This is at least at the Coopersburg campus. It's a little different with the smaller remote offices. But at our headquarters, there's turf, and there's people who play soccer, people who play flag football, ultimate frisbee. Pretty much every day. Now, all of this obviously is pre-COVID. It's very different these days, but yeah, over lunch, like every single day of the week, there will be people playing sand volleyball. We have 2 courts in the middle of the campus, and people love that. It's, I don't know, a big part of culture there. A lot of people play volleyball. And then I have some pictures here too from running. There are a lot of runners at Lutron. I am not one of them, but I do participate sometimes, which is in these pictures. We have an annual 5K around the Lutron campus, and so the top left picture is the whole supply chain team. We all participated together. We got matching T-shirts, so that was fun. And like bottom right, there's even a gardening club. I know some people who do that, and they all share the vegetables that they harvest. So yeah, and then as anyone, like, you can just also be casual, hang out, go to trivia, do a happy hour with your team or with your friends. But that's a big part of relationship building at work too. So, hope we left a little time. I don't know if anyone has any questions for us. If you are interested, you can look at any of our open recs at lutron.com/careers, as well as if you need to get in contact with anybody, please reach out to recruiting@lutron.com, and someone will be happy to assist you. So yeah. I think that's all from us.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or just unmute your mic. We have like 6 minutes left of the meeting if you want to stay around.
Holly, I have a question. Do they have any need for maybe material science or chemical engineers?
Good question. We definitely have, like plastics and things that have to go through very, very like tight specs. So I would imagine like molding of the plastics, and that would involve a material science engineer. It wouldn't be posted probably under a MSc type of role. But you could always, again, reach out maybe to recruiting@lutron.com, and they could point you in the direction of the closest rec, or they might know of someone looking. That's a much more specific type of need, but I could definitely see where we do have a need for those types of engineers.
A quick question. For people who, like me, who are going into a full-time job after we graduate, do you have any tips on adapting to that learning curve you usually get hit with in your first year?
So yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, and I know at least for me coming out of college. I had to kind of learn just to ask questions and not be embarrassed if I didn't know the answer to something. If you're new to the company, there's a lot you're not going to know. So just making sure that you build those relationships and you're comfortable asking for help when you need it. It's a big thing for me.
Yeah. Ask, ask, ask. And it's better to ask early than to ask like 2 years into the job. Because at that point, it is kind of like, well, I thought you knew this by now. At the beginning, like, don't be shy. And people expect you to ask questions, and they don't expect you to know everything. So, like, they understand you're going to be going through a learning curve, and that's should be built into your manager's plan for, how much work they're giving you.
Thank you. Okay, last call for questions, anyone? If not, we can end it here. But thank you both, Holly and Madison, for coming, and thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you for having us. This is great. And I hope some of you are interested, and we'll reach out to Lutron. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time, guys.